The Department of Justice just sued a major U.S. city over its gun laws, and if you live in New Jersey, you should pay attention to this because I do think this is not random. This is the exact escalation that I warned about in my last video when the DOJ issued that warning to Virginia. So now we've moved from warnings to lawsuits, and what happens next could directly impact gun laws across the country, including New Jersey. So let's get started. First, the DOJ sent a letter. Then they issued a warning. Now they're taking cities to federal court. The Department of Justice filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Denver, Colorado, along with the Denver Police Department. I'll put a link to the actual complaint in the description if you want to read it. But the actual complaint lays it out clearly. Denver has an ordinance that makes it illegal to carry, possess, sell, or even store what they define as quote-unquote assault weapons. Now, according to the DOJ, that law is unconstitutional. From the reporting, the DOJ says these laws unconstitutionally infringe, in quote, on the rights of law-abiding citizens. And here's the key phrase that you're going to hear over and over again, folks: firearms in common use. What we have to remember, folks, is this isn't just about Denver. I want to talk about a couple of main points here. Point number one is common use. The DOJ is arguing that the firearms Denver is banning are not unusual weapons. They're not rare. They're not niche. They are commonly owned by millions of Americans. The complaint specifically points out tens of millions of AR-15 style rifles are in circulation, and they are widely used for lawful purposes like self-defense and recreation. So here's the translation. If millions of law-abiding Americans own something, it becomes very difficult for the government to justify banning it. Point number two, the Bruen framework. Remember, we've talked a lot about Bruen on this channel. That landmark U.S. Supreme Court case decided June of 2022 regarding the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court already laid out the test in Bruen. Step one, does the Second Amendment cover the conduct that's in question? If yes, step two, the government must prove the law is consistent with the historical tradition of firearm regulation. And here's the key. That means the burden is on the government, not you, the citizen. Point number three, this is bigger than a lawsuit. So this part I think is critical. The DOJ isn't just saying, hey, this law is questionable. They're saying this law is so unconstitutional that enforcing it is a violation of civil rights. The complaint actually argues there is a, quote, pattern of practice, end quote, of constitutional violations tied to enforcement. So let's let that sink in for a minute. They're not just challenging the law, they're challenging the entire enforcement of that law. Of course, on the other side, Denver is not backing down. So it looks like the law or some form of the ordinance has been around since 1989, including the assault weapon definition. They recently made some changes, including changing the standard magazine capacity to 15 rounds. So they included that in the definition of an assault weapon. New Jersey has something similar, only they use 10 rounds. Now, they do note in the complaint that the ordinance uses politically charged rhetoric. The term, quote, assault weapon, end quote, is not a technical term used in the firearm industry. Of course, we all know this. Rather, as Justice Thomas has noted in other cases, and I'm going to quote here, assault weapon is a rhetorically charged political term developed by anti-gun publicists. The complaint continues to say that in reality, the firearms the city calls, quote, assault weapons, end quote, include ordinary semi-automatic rifles possessed by millions of law-abiding Americans. Indeed, Americans own literally tens of millions of AR-15 style rifles. And according to them, they have the authority to regulate firearms locally. So now you have a direct conflict. Federal government is saying this violates the Constitution. Local government is saying this protects public safety. So, of course, this is a major conflict. To me, this case isn't really about Denver. This is about testing the limits of firearm bans nationwide, because I think if DOJ wins here, it won't stop in Colorado. It'll become sort of a roadmap for challenging laws, similar laws like this, across the country. For my New Jersey citizens, you already know we have some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country. Magazine limits, feature-based bans. All this should sound familiar if you're from New Jersey, because the same arguments being used in this case apply directly to the laws here in New Jersey. And in my opinion, here's the reality of this. If courts start ruling that commonly owned firearms cannot be banned, that means this won't stay in Denver, it won't stay in Colorado, it will actually reach states like New Jersey. Here's the wrap up, folks. The DOJ warned Virginia, now they're suing Denver. And this is likely just the beginning of a much larger legal push, I think. We're seeing the DOJ get more involved, at least under this administration. So I think the outcomes of these cases will shape what the laws look like for years to come in other states like New Jersey. I'll try to keep everybody updated on any changes, especially related to New Jersey law, so make sure you're subscribed and you turn on notifications. And if you haven't seen my breakdown on the DOJ warning Virginia, watch that next. It'll be at the end of this video. Also, links are in the description, because that's where this story really started. Thanks for watching. Take care and stay safe.